So my name is Rob Flake. I'm a reverse mortgage specialist with Cross Country Mortgage. And I'm excited to be here. I'm your cruise director for the next hour or so. We're excited about how many people are here. And so there will be opportunities for you guys to ask questions. If you'll just give me the grace to then say, hey, let's kind of move this if we need to the end. Everyone that's here, that's participating, is going to make themselves available for longer and deeper conversations afterwards. So if you'll just bear with me, I have to keep some of this on time. I'm very excited about the panel. We have three fantastic people here who, like the rest of us, has volunteered our time. None of us are here to sell anything. While we would hope that you might use our services, our primary focus is education. And we also want to be a resource. And so what's great about the people that are making this possible, including those in the back and here on the panel, is think of us as a resource. That if you might not know who to go to, but you can come to anyone up here and they'll know who to direct you to help you. So again, let's just get started. We are going to talk about some very tough subjects. But before we get to the panel, I just want to list off a couple of things. And if you don't mind, I also kind of have to stand, and it's my old bones. Most older adults want to age in place, and we're going to talk about that today. According to AARP, 77% of the people aged 50 and older want to remain in their home. And we're going to talk about the difficulty of that. Some of you may already be experiencing that, or some of you may know people who are struggling to just do that. Home modifications are often needed. We've got a panelist here that will address some of those. 85% of the homes in the U.S. are not designed to support aging in place. I love my home now. My home fits me now, but I know as I'm getting older, I'm noticing maybe it's the stairs or other things that don't quite fit how I was even 15 years ago. So think about another 15 years or 20 years after that. The cost of modifications can vary. We're not talking about little modifications. They could be a few $100s to tens of thousands of dollars. And some of the panelists up here are going to talk about what some of those modifications may be and how you may want to think about them now instead of in the future. Many adults rely on nearby family and friends for their care and for their health. We've got a panelist that can be that friend, that family member, and make your life much better. We found that over 60% of successful aging in place plans include help from others. Well, let's kind of push that off to the people that specialize in that. Let's do some planning for that, and again, that's what we're going to talk about today. Here's something that a lot of people struggle with: loneliness in their retirement years. So more and more, as I've become more aware of things that happen in this space, loneliness is a big thing. And isolation, some of that may even come from hearing loss. We're also hearing that some people are taking some of their funds and they're paying for food for their pets and not for the medication for themselves. And we need to have people who are identifying that. And we've got somebody on the panel that can say, hey, are you aware that this is a struggle that your family member has? So these are some of the things we're going to talk about. Aging in place often requires a team. I see a team right there. We're going to get to know them. All right, home care is expanding. LaShawn, who's going to talk, I love her. I've been amazed at things that I didn't know the services that she and others like her can provide. I'm thinking, oh man, I gotta introduce my mom to that or family member to it. It's really cool. Everyone's favorite subject, legal stuff. Oh my gosh. Can you guess what panelist is that? Right? I'm gonna tell you, she is harmless, she's engaging and smart. Her assistant back there, I don't know. She is awesome, right? Most medical needs can be handled at home. Many people don't know that. They want to age at home, but they think they have to go somewhere else. We've got people on the panel, we've got people in the back that are really striving and growing their profession and helping people at home and helping them. My particular niche, which is reverse mortgages, more people are realizing we've got this asset and we can use it. Right now, the estimate is over $14 trillion of home equity seniors are sitting on, and it's just there. Why not use that to have a better retirement? Some cases that's healthcare, some cases it's modifying the homes, some cases it's spoiling the grandkids. It's always about the grandkids. So, all right, so that's what we're going to talk about today. Let's start with introductions, and we'll just go from left to right. Who are you? What do you do?
Hi, I'm not the lawyer. No, I'm the lawyer. Hi, everyone. My name is Jenny Roselle. I'm with Indiana Estate and Elder Law. We have offices in Fishers, Rockville, and Wabash. And like the firm name, All we do is estate planning and elder law. So that's what I'm gonna be focusing a lot on today.
And hello, everyone. My name is LaShawn King. I am the marketing sales manager for Graceful Aging Home Care. We've been in business about 6 years, and I'm gonna just give you a quick fun fact. My daughter is actually the owner of the business, so she is my boss. I lovingly call her my boss daughter. So I will be here to answer any questions you guys may have about home care.
I'm Sam with In Home Preferred. I'm an occupational therapist originally in like the nursing home, long-term care setting. Just finding that people were coming to facilities with new injuries and they were unable to return home solely due to how their home was set up. So we do home safety assessments and help people prepare for injuries that are gonna happen in the future and general aging in place.
Awesome. All right, folks, so let's talk about what people don't want to hear. All right, so what do most people not realize about trying to age in place until it's way too late? Let's start with you, Sam.
I think people don't realize that it takes a lot of time and preparation. People have lived in their homes for a long time and they don't always consider just simple things that can be changed over time to help them prepare and stay there safely. Little things that cause falls that they stepped over every day and one day they won't be able to step over.
What kind of modifications might they make?
Entryway, bathrooms are the main ones, thresholds, in their home, different floorings, depending if they have a 2-level home. Any type of modification that can keep you from, you might be doing it now, but depending on what injury happens to you, you never know. So just having backup plans sometimes, even if you're still using the full home.
You see some of that, Michelle?
Yes, lighting, tons. Lighting is another thing that, think like I have a basement, my infamous basement, that it's not well lit. Of course, I can see and I can navigate through it now, but, it's gonna come a time that we're gonna have to change that whole, setup, so.
Do you get with what you do where there might be issues where you're trying to then navigate between the person that you're caring for and maybe the family and having those tough issues, those conversations?
That I think, Rock, is the toughest thing, is a family member has to come to terms that mom or dad, grandma or granddad has, is aging and things are changing. And I think sometimes we overlook those warning signs because we love that person. They're just getting older or, whatever the case may be, but those are warning signs, right? And those are the things that we want to be careful that we're not just brushing those off and just chalking it up to just aging, because that's not aging, right? Yes, I forget my keys. I'm not, what I would typically call like a senior yet, but those are warning signs, right? We have to pay attention to the warning signs, and I am a big advocate of being proactive. Like, don't wait till the last minute. Start visiting those, start talking about those things with your family members, right? We prepare for everything else in our lives. Start preparing for what happens if. That's what, that's the conversation I said, what happens if.
But my guess is when some of those conversations start happening, they've done at least some planning. Now we have someone like Jenny that comes into place. There's probably this power struggle, right? Between the parents that want maybe the modifications or they want the service, but then the person you're providing the care to may not, and now we get into legal issues, and you pick it up and take it from there. What happens?
I think that my vantage point, my firm often gets involved usually when there's no plan in place, or maybe there's a little bit of a plan, but we haven't, I think talking about this aging in place topic, it is so big. It takes a village. The statistic you said that 75% of homes, is that what it was, are not constructed to be 85. That is wild, and I'm not surprised either. So you can't just wave some magic pixie dust on your house and then it's ready to rock and roll for when you're 85. And so I often see my office entering into the equation when there's no plan, and more specifically when, most often when I see it, it's when people, usually cannot stay at home anymore because they didn't have a plan. And that's usually when they're, first starting to see the cost of long-term care. And it is shocking. If you haven't Googled it, Google it after this. It is a very expensive venture, and so I usually am the one that has to be the bearer of bad news of, well, if they're saying you can't stay at home anymore, it's a huge financial undertaking to start thinking and talking about long-term care.
And we're seeing that in my practice, where we have a lot more people that are coming to us and saying, hey, I wanna stay at home, how do I afford to do that? And maintain the other assets that I have, so
Yeah.
it's becoming more and more because we're having the audacity to live longer.
That's
I know, how dare we do that, right? Yeah.
I was just gonna add to that statistic, actually only 1% of homes in Indiana are set up for wheelchair accessibility. So if you were to need to live in your home in a wheelchair, Indiana's only set up that 1% of our homes are fully wheelchair accessible. So the 85% is like walker or maybe using a cane or something like that, it's still accessible, but
And guys, I can even add to that from my own experience. Showers are dangerous. We were in Nashville for New Year's Eve party, and I slipped in the shower at the hotel and broke my nose. And guys, and this was maybe about 10 years ago, and I literally now, that trauma of still, so I made my husband get a walk-in shower, and my kids were all like laughing at me, Mom, this is like in the assisted living facility shower. I was like, yeah, but when you break your nose, you don't care, and I literally have a walk-in, so, you have to start thinking about those kind of things, you really, really do.
Yeah, this is stuff that's not in the brochure.
No.
It's about getting older. And so are there other obvious risks that you run into, Sam, that we should be addressing?
yeah, I think like the two things that we address the most are your entryway into your home and then the shower setup. So your entryway, like anyone can break their ankle or twist it at any point, and if you have steps to get in, maybe there's not a railing by those steps, they're uneven. Always having a plan for how you're gonna get in your home or out of it, if one of those things happen, and it could just be temporary, but we always like to have at least one zero entry step recommendation. And then the shower, sometimes even people have walk-in showers and it still has a 6-inch step to get in, and so it's really not accessible for needs. And people don't like grab bars all the time either, but they really do help a lot, even just for a twisted ankle or anything like that. People rely on them a lot, and making sure that they're bolted into the wall and not the sticky ones that sometimes can cause falls themselves.
One of the things that we've talked about in previous meetings was cameras. We're having more people that are installing cameras, not to invade the privacy of the person living there, but just to check on them. And I had an experience over the weekend where my mother, who was struggling with her cancer bout, in the middle of the night had fallen down between her bed, and she's got a small couch in her bedroom. So she's pounding on the wall, because normally I'm in the guest bedroom, but I had fallen asleep on her couch watching a movie. I had no idea. And so there was, how do you, we have to think about those things. And so, yeah, it happens. Did you have anything else to add, Michelle?
There are like sensor systems too that are not necessarily cameras, so that it just like detects movement for people that don't want their loved ones to kind of know everything they're doing, but it can just alert them, Mom moved today, this morning, she moved at 2 o'clock, just so that they can kind of know that she's still up. A lot of times family members that are out of town really like that. And then there's also like tracking, and so I've seen where maybe sometimes the mom only gets up twice during the night, and all of a sudden she's getting up 10 times, so it can alert them and be like, maybe there's an issue, take her to the doctor and see if she has a UTI. So there's a lot of cool things that technology can do now with helping track those kind of things.
I had a legal question, but I wanna make sure, did you have anything to add
No.
before I ask her? So again, it goes back to your field. And what can be done legally when we start to have, our parents that are in these situations, and now we've got this battle going on. Do they stay, do they go, who has that control? I mean, do you run into that with your practice?
Oh my goodness, all the time. you know, I'm an advocate for always maintaining independence. That's really important. If you start to take away their independence, you'll see a decline. And so there's a delicate balance there between maintaining their independence but also protecting them. I really wish that there was like a one-size-fits-all answer to this question. The question I typically get kind of alongside that is, you know, how do I bring this up with my parents or my loved one or grandparents, whoever? And it's hard because, like, we are all very different people in this room. We could, you know, that topic could push some people away. It could, others could be very open to it. And so, you know, I think it's obvious the theme of the day is going to be to start these kind of things as early as possible. When it comes to my world, you know, the people that really resist those conversations, it's better just to keep planting seeds. And ultimately that seed will start to grow, and you know, it's one of those things that I wish there was a nice pretty answer I could give, but everyone's so different. Some people love talking about, you know, incapacity and death. Not just me. Not just me either. But a vast majority of people, they don't like talking about this sort of stuff. And so I've also found, interestingly, a lot of the times that the child or the, you know, loved one that is sort of taking the bull by the horns and helping their person navigate things, they often at some point become public enemy number one as well. We'll see where, you know, perhaps some cognitive impairment starts happening, and next thing they know, this person's trying to take the keys to my car. They're trying to take my checkbook. And so there's just a lot of very touchy things to navigate in this.
Well, Sam and Michelle, how do you navigate when it does come to that point? And now you are seeing this change in the people that you're helping. What do you do?
It's very, very tricky. It is, because I know for me, I always try to put myself in that person's shoes, right? All these changes, all this is happening to someone. And I always tell family, listen, guys, we've got to think these were independent people who have full lives. We can't, like, they're 5-year-olds, you know, oh, I'm just gonna take your car. That's not gonna be effective at all. And just like Jennifer said, they will decline quickly when you do that, right? You know, my dad lives in Pennsylvania, and he got to the point, you know, and I'm here, I'm the only child, so it's been tricky me navigating my parents' aging. And it got to the point, you know, his girlfriend would call me, you know, he needs to really start driving. And so, just to your point, my dad's been driving since he's been like 14. This is gonna be a tough conversation. But I start planting the seeds, like, Dad, you know, you're not driving in the winter, so it doesn't matter. You're paying insurance, this crazy amount of money because of your age. You're not driving the car anyway, you know. So and it took me a minute. And so I literally, guys, one day I was just like, I'm going to Pittsburgh. I drove the car all the way back to Indianapolis. It still sits in my driveway now. Now it's kind of me, because now it's become like sentimental, right? Now I can't give it away. But, you know, I was just, you know, if you guys ever been, there are bridges, there are tunnels, there are mountains. It scares me to drive there. So my 77-year-old dad is, you know, it's, you know, we just had to have that conversation. So you have to be delicate with it, but you have to be honest with them, right? You have to, you know, tell them, hey, this is going to be the best thing for you. And my dad now, I talked to him the other day, I don't even care about driving. I was like, you live in the city, you can Uber, you can do whatever you want. You don't need a car anyway. You know, parking garages are $50. I was like, why would you want to do that? So, you know, I think you just have to ease them into it. You can't do it all at one time. You can't, that's why preparing is so important, so important. You can't do it all in one shot. You just can't. You have to ease it.
I would say a lot of times, we're brought in to have that tough conversation because people aren't
So
hearing
you're the bad
it.
guy.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, but they'll take it better from us because, we know it a little bit better and can kind of have that softer spot. Maybe the son or daughter has been saying, you need to move this dresser, it's in the way, it's creating not enough space, or your shower's not safe. And People aren't gonna hear it from their son or daughter, but then I can come in and say the exact same thing, and sometimes it makes the son or daughter mad, and I'm like, it's okay, either way, they agreed to get the new shower, right? But sometimes bringing in an outside professional, somebody else besides the son or daughter, I have the same issue with my own parents that don't have a 0-step entry, and when my dad was in the hospital, I'm like, wow, it really would be nice if you didn't have those 2 steps to get inside that I've been telling you, but they never hear it from their own kids, so sometimes bringing in that other professional and hearing it from people that have stories that can talk about patients or clients that have had these issues and how it helped them and get them home, those kind of things.
Well, to give a little bit of a shout out to Leanne from a real estate perspective, because a lot of what I do is I also help people buy homes in their retirement. And so, and using reverse mortgage, so one of the loans I closed recently had a client in Tipton. So I see a lot of my clients. So I drove there, I'm a Montana boy, it's 30 miles, and that's like maybe around the corner where I grew up. But then I drove with her perspective of what it was like for her, and in the winters. And then as if she was my mother, I'm like, I would not want my mom driving 30 miles in the winter to go to church and book club and all the doctors like, oh, I get it, this is different. Well, then she has since moved now to Carmel, and she's so much happier because it's a better house that fits her retirement, it's closer. It's also closer to all of her medical things and to her friends. And so if you've not looked at that, it's something else to talk with Leanne about. And one of the things that, when I talked with her recently, she was so excited, because not only did she not have to drive, now people didn't have to drive there because they were not gonna do that. But now they were coming to her house, she's like, so we talked about isolation and loneliness, she's no longer lonely, because she bought that home that better fit her in retirement, so. When should people be thinking about legal things and powers of attorney and estate? How late should they do it? Can they wait?
No. I mean, everyone in the room knew I was gonna say that answer. You know, it's one of those, I think I've been doing this for 15 years now. I just know people are gonna get to it when they get to it. And I often, you know, I have way more, you know, success stories of people doing the proper pre-planning than I have, you know, nightmares and having to clean things up. But what I can tell people is when people like me have to work harder, guess what's gonna happen? It's gonna cost more. So don't make people like me work harder and get your plans in place, and you'll end up saving yourself not only headaches, but literal time and money as well.
Come on, they can just do it once and be done with their plan.
No, my goodness.
This is a continuing process,
Yes,
right? It's not
yeah.
just a one and done. It's continuing, because that's the thing that's so scary about aging. We're working with a client, I think he's maybe 50, and he has like onset Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? You
Yeah.
just don't know.
Yeah.
And so that's why, but he was a lawyer,
Yeah.
so he was
On it.
prepared, yeah, you know, so that's the thing, is just like, it's one of those things my grandmother used to tell me all the time, if it comes to your mind, you're thinking about it, you need to do something about it.
And you're probably too late.
Yeah, you
You're
really
right,
are, if you've thought about it, you need to make a plan,
Yeah.
period, it's just no way of getting around it.
Because when you guys were talking, I was thinking, well, those battles that you might have with their children, their adult children who have powers of attorney. And you're trying to tell them, hey, your mom needs care, she doesn't want it, and when they can exert that power of attorney when they can't. I mean, what happens in those situations?
It kind of goes back to that saying, what I said earlier about, you know, it's delicate balance between, you know, having them maintain independence. And unfortunately, when people start to operate not in their best interest and resist, then that's typically when you start hearing the word guardianship get thrown around. It breaks my heart when we have to go through guardianship proceeding. I've often said that I wish that there was a nice, pretty, happy medium between powers of attorney and guardianship, but there's really not. And so it stinks because, you know, there's people that, you know, usually with cognitive impairment is when this happens, where they may have done a good job and gotten a power of attorney in place, and then they start resisting. And then, you know, third parties, they are, you know, stuck in the middle, like, well, I've gotta listen to mom, but I know mom's not operating her best interest, and that's usually when families are contacting an elder law attorney to basically say, here's the scoop, what are my options? And one of those options is guardianship, and sometimes it's just necessary, even though it breaks all of our hearts to have to go through that process.
Because now you pitted families against, you know, a son or a daughter might not agree,
Yeah.
and it, you know, it gets to be.
And the outcome of a guardianship is effectively taking that person's voice away and putting their voice with someone else. And so if Rock, I'm your guardian, the third party is not gonna listen to Rock anymore. That third party, whether it's Sam, whether it's LaShawn, they're gonna be listening to me as guardian. And so that's why I say it breaks my heart, because Rock doesn't have a voice anymore. And to me, that's sad, but sometimes people start operating in a way that we probably all have stories of where they were not thinking as they would have normally done.
I see two things as you're talking. To the left of you, I see a lot of head shaking.
Mhm.
But the other part about what you're talking about was the guardianship was, and the power of attorneys were things that they could all set up now and decide who might be that best person to be in that role.
Yeah,
So-
and that's the beautiful thing of doing these documents, to say, you know, if I'm in a situation too where I cannot be making my own healthcare or financial decisions, who do I trust to put in that capacity? And if there is a guardianship that needs to take place, who do I want in that role? And that's what effectively often eliminates, you know, siblings pitting against each other, which what I always tell people, lawyers, if you can sue anyone for anyone, or against anyone for any time, any reason, there's always gonna be a cruddy lawyer willing to take that case. And so even if you have a document that says, I want Rock as my guardian, and the siblings wanna battle it out, that's
There we
what's
go.
gonna happen, unfortunately, but.
Does that document ever change? Like you thought, hey, I want this person to do it, but do people ever change their minds?
The actual person doing the documents?
That maybe, you know, you might change it from your son to your daughter.
Oh,
or-
absolutely. People change them often for all sorts of different reasons. Happy reasons, maybe son got relocated and is getting an awesome new job, but he's across the country. Sad reasons, people died, people have medical issues. Yeah, so people change them often. I'm also huge advocate for putting successors in place, because you could list people and they can decline. They can say, thanks for listening to me, but I don't want any part of this, I'll decline. So we need to have successors listed in case something like that happens.
So Sam and LaShawn, so you guys are kind of the bridge. If you've not met Dave Holder in the back.
Dave-
Good question.
Dave
I
is
He
saw
had,
that.
he had a question.
Hey, Dave,
He was trying to start the
Sorry,
wave.
Dave.
I more attention to that.
Dave, I didn't know if you were
Everybody look
stretching
at
or
me,
waiting.
look at me, that was all.
I was feeling you, Dave.
No. So Jenny, can you tell everybody what a POA can and can't do? Cause I get calls all the time that say, well, I'm mom's POA, so she's gonna go to assisted living.
Yeah, and good luck with that.
Yeah.
So there's two types of POAs. There's financial and there's healthcare. And so sometimes people just like group them all into one, and they may be saying, hey, I want mom to go into a nursing home. They may not even be the healthcare power of attorney. They may be the financial. That would be the healthcare side. So those are the kind of the two biggies. And the other big thing for power of attorneys is they terminate at death. I always say no more pulse, no more power of attorney. That's when the executor or a trustee ends up taking over. But there's a lot of things, somewhat, even if they're not acting malicious, someone could continue operating as someone's power of attorney and get themselves into a lot of trouble because they don't have the authority anymore. So that's another big one. That answer your question?
Well, I guess, but a POA, like somebody has to be deemed not able to make decisions for themselves.
Not
right?
always, not
okay.
always. There's even another kind of, I guess this is why lawyers exist, they're, yeah.
Too many choices.
There's another kind of power of attorney that's springing versus durable. Springing only becomes effective when there's an incapacity that's documented. Those are actually by far not common. The durable version, which grants authority immediately, is much more common. And I always explain the why is because medical professionals don't like going around declaring people incapacitated. So there's always going to be a delay between someone starting to make questionable decisions and when someone's incapacitated. And so a durable power of attorney actually becomes effective immediately. Whoever is named as that primary power of attorney has immediate authority to act in your behalf. I actually use the example of one of my mentors. Her husband worked on Amtrak, and he was fine and dandy. He was still working, and they closed on a house, and she signed as his power of attorney through all the real estate closings. He was fine. There was no incapacity. That's that durable version. They have that authority immediately. Power of attorneys, to Dave's point, there's so many different types that third parties get themselves in. I say third parties, like just any kind of vendor that someone could use as they age in place. They get themselves in a pickle sometimes because someone will say, oh, I'm mom's power of attorney. And that person, that third party, may not be equipped to figure out, well, what kind of power of attorney is this? Is it medical? Is it financial? Is it durable? Is it springing?
We learned that the hard way.
Yes.
Yeah.
So one thing, if you get a chance, go talk to Dave. Didn't see him raise his hand, but I could feel it. So the question I have, because we could talk about legal stuff all day long, which would be great.
Oh, yeah, let's do it.
Fun. And so really going back to the other two panelists, what should people be thinking about today to kind of either lengthen or help bridge that transaction from where they are now in the home to where they might need the services of Dave and some of the assisted living places that we have? So where should they start now?
I think it's good to prepare, like, what you wanna stay at home forever, is that your goal 100%, or at what point would it take for you to want to live in an assisted living or a nursing home? So maybe you decide, I'll live at my home if I'm using a walker, or I can live alone. But if I need to use a wheelchair, then I'm going to consider an assisted living. So kind of having that and sharing it with your family members and knowing that that's the plan. Or maybe if you're saying, I'll live at home while I can be independent, but I do not want my son or daughter to live with me. And so when that becomes the choice, then I'll reach out to somebody and talk about assisted living. So kind of setting in your mind how long you wanna stay at home, what your goal is. Some people want to live at home forever, no matter what, and they're going to put all the plans in place. And what do you have to do to make that an option? To make your home that 1% that's gonna be completely wheelchair accessible, to have your finances ready, to have 24/7 care in the home? Or does that look like your daughter being retired, or does your daughter work full-time? What are those plans gonna look like? Having those tough conversations and setting up a plan is probably the number one.
And being the
Plan.
therapist that you are there, and they probably already know the answer, but are there physical things they should be doing now that would help with any of that?
Like to their home
To-
or
no,
to their
To be
body?
active and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, making sure you're active and still working out, making sure you're going to the doctor and having your health screenings when things like vision become an issue. How are you going to adapt those kind of things and prepare? If you're falling, what are you gonna do to decrease falls? It's definitely, that's why we do like the very personalized home assessment, is because everybody's different. I could tell everybody that they need a grab bar at 33 inches because that's what ADA is recommending, but you may be 4 foot or you may be 8 foot and it doesn't matter. You're gonna need a grab bar at a different spot, or you may have vision or hearing changes. How is that gonna affect your home setup? So kind of talking to your doctor, knowing what your health condition looks like, how that's gonna progress, and modifying your plan for that.
And guys, on your seats, I put like a little quiz. So it's like a little quiz, like, what, like some things that I should look at, answer that, take it home with you, look it over, and and just kind of, and be honest with yourself. I think that's the biggest thing, is just like, we just really have to like look inward and like, listen, I don't want, we working with a young lady, her dad was her everything, he raised her, her mom died when she was a little girl and he raised her. And, you know, and she's like, LaShawn, I don't wanna be the one that has to baby my dad. I want us to spend good quality time together. I don't wanna be the one that has to go to the grocery store. We wanna go to the park, right? We wanted to have those good memories. And so I think it's so important that we're listening to each other, we're taking each other's feelings into consideration, you know? And I can't say this enough, guys, you've got to plan for it. It's not gonna happen. There's no pixie
Magic
dust.
pixie dust.
It's
No.
just not. And hopefully we'll all age, you know, I have we have a lady, she's 104 years old, and she literally can walk circles around me. She really can, but she's active in her church, she models in her, you know, it was a big fashion show, Mother's Day, she modeled, you know, and she always comes and she's like dressed to a T, and she's just like so awesome, but I just see like, she's so social, and I was like, this is it, this is why she's thriving. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't look like she's, and I've like known her now for like 2-3 years. And I know one day we were leaving an event and she goes, LaShawn, I think I'm ready to date. And I literally was like, looking around, and I was like, you know, like, where did that voice come from? And so, and I looked at her and I was like, you know, and like her and I have this, you know, we have this relationship. And I was like, well, I'm gonna be really honest with you. I don't know, only men I know that are 100 are in Crown Hill. I was like, and she just fell out, and she just thought that was, and then she goes, well, I don't want them that old. They at least have to be, you know, like 80. And I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, oh, I really have this. But she enjoys life, you know, she does. And I just think that is just like so awesome. That's how I want to do it, right? You know, God willing, that's how I want to be able to enjoy it, right? And if that's living at home, that's great. And if it doesn't look like that, it doesn't have to be a death sentence either if we can't age in place.
So I want to ask one last question, open it up to everyone. So are there any blind spots that we've not addressed here that you guys think we should talk about? Someone maybe they should have been revisiting besides dating?
Get a prenup in place. I say that jokingly, but it's actually a great nugget. I know it's not aging in place topic, but I tell people all the time, people would be surprised how many of my clients get remarried in their 70s, 80s. People think prenup, they think divorce, and I promise you, when you're not thinking divorce, prenups, they protect your assets. Because a spouse is the one person that you cannot disinherit. So if someone gets remarried at 70, 80, 90, whatever, we're doing prenups for those folks so that their assets are protected and preserved for their beneficiaries. So, yeah, if you make it to 104 and you want to get married,
Yeah,
just 'cause
exactly.
We're kind of off topic. So actually, in the reverse mortgage space, one of the things that we see quite often is people getting divorced. Over the age of 50, the divorce rate's doubled. Over 65, it's tripled. There's one thing when someone was working and now they're at home. I liked you better when you were at the office. This is not what my retirement. So we're seeing more of that, and people are living much longer and they're much more active thanks to phone energy. So, all right, questions? We have free advice up here.
I'll buy y'all some time. I wrote a note for myself when we were kind of preparing for this. I also think that there's, this whole aging in place topic, I want to say it sounds good in theory, and it does work very well for a lot of folks, especially when you properly plan. But I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that you could have the best plans and still things happen. Life happens. And when I was thinking about this session for today, I was reminded of this very sweet couple that I helped years ago that they are the ones that, said to me they want to stay at home forever and ever and ever. Husband ends up getting Lewy body dementia, which is a very, very, it's a form of dementia. They're very notoriously mean. There's a lot of mean tendencies that come through Lewy body. And he was at home and slashing his wife's tires. He turned into a person that, it just turned into a totally different person, all because of this diagnosis. And I'm kind of feeling a little choked up because I think of that poor wife, and she beat herself up, putting him into a facility. And at the end of the day, if she didn't, she would have killed herself. And so I think that we also have to be realistic in this whole topic. And at the end of the day, we can do the best plans that will buy us probably more time to be able to stay at home, but also give yourself grace if you're ever in a situation like that, to be like, I tried as much as I could, and that has to be good enough.
That's so funny that you said that, because that was my next little tidbit, guys. Every plan A needs a plan B. Life, this is life. It throws us curveballs. We can plan, everything down to the last thing, and then something will happen, right? We had a lady, she was a principal. She had everything in place. She had her meals delivered. She had us coming as caregivers. Everything was working out great. She has a stroke. And we got mobility issues, and we got memory issues, and then we had to come to the conclusion that this is not safe any longer, right? This is when we're gonna have to make that decision. It's time to go to the assisted living for your safety, right? And so always have a plan B. You have to be flexible in this thing. It's not gonna go like this, right? It's life. Like, has anyone's life did that? No, it's gonna be, and we're all new to this aging thing, right? You've never been 80 before. You've never been this age before, so we're all new to it. So give yourself some grace too. Give yourself some
You
grace.
guys have also kind of, at different times, each of you kind of addressed it. We've talked a lot about, like, the service that you provide often is for, that recipient, right? For mom, dad, whoever it may be. But also, your care actually brings a great deal of value to their kids, because, and that caregiver. And so often the wear and tear on the caregiver is oftentimes worse in some case. And so maybe touch upon how you guys are actually giving people their life back.
Guys, you know the analogy people give, like when you're on the airplane, the plane goes down, and you've got to put the oxygen mask on yourself first. That is the one that I use to caregivers all the time. You've got, especially, it's different when it's a third party. It's not a mom, it's not a son or daughter or a family member or a loved one, right? It's such a totally different dynamic. And so when it's your mom, dad, or whoever, you've got to take care of yourself, because you're no good to them if you're burnt out, if you're tired, if you're sick. I've literally seen caregivers die before the person that they're taking care
I
of.
see that often.
Yeah, because it's very stressful, right? It's a lot, because you're still trying to run your life, run someone else's life. This is tough, and this is why we kind of come in and say, hey, listen, you enjoy mom and dad or grandma and granddad. Let us do the heavy lifting. Let us take them to the doctor's appointment, to the hairdresser. You do the fun things. It's almost like you get to be the grandparent, right? Like I always get like my kids, like, you never did that with me, yeah, because I wasn't the grandparent. I was the mom, right? So that's kind of how I look at it. It's like, let someone else do the heavy lifting. You just enjoy your person.
Let them be mad at Sam for.
Yeah, let them be mad at us.
I'm the bad guy too, Sam.
Yeah, let them be mad at us. You keep your relationship with your loved one intact. Let them be angry with us. We're fine with that.
And I was just gonna say that, like, it's hard to live alone and manage a whole home, and sometimes I think people forget about that. We get prideful and we wanna do everything alone, but we like to talk about, when you have to take your garbage out and cook and clean, sometimes that becomes your entire day, and that's all you're doing is just managing your home and managing your daily life. So thinking about your own quality of life, and when is it time to have somebody come for 4 hours twice a week to help you with those chores, or when is it time to go to an assisted living so that you never have to cook a meal again? If that's something that's causing you anxiety or not bringing you happiness, think about your quality of life and how much better your life would be if you're taking those tasks away that you don't like to do, or taking them off of your family members that don't want to come 4 hours every day to do your laundry and cook and prepare those things. So kind of thinking about the things that are bringing you the most burden, and even if it's pride and having to ask your neighbor to take the trash can to the curb because that's something that brings you so much anxiety because it's such a high fall risk to carry this heavy trash can, learning to ask for help and to think about quality of life and what brings brings you happiness or burden.
It'll come up a lot in the fall within my industry, and things that we will tell other people is that now it's holiday time and you're starting to see your family members, your older family members, is then try to have the opportunity to see their home. Check their car, maybe their tires need to be changed, but they're, why are they driving on bald tires? Their health, when was the last time they've eaten? Because they have too much pride to tell you, they don't wanna be a burden. And so let's look for those different things, and sometimes in the holidays it's easier, in the summer maybe not so much, but oftentimes there are those signs, and then you have to have the tough conversation.
And there's always signs, right? It doesn't happen all at once, right? It's always little signs. Pay attention to the little signs. It's always the little things.
Good, we have a question.
Do I understand that home preferred or in-home preferred, you will come out to the house and kind of assess what things should be happening for someone to age in place?
Yeah, so we kind of go through the house and like get to know you and your physical things that people that are coming in the home, everything about you, and then we go room by room and talk about plans. What your room looks like now, what your routine is like now, how that would change if you needed a cane or a walker, how that would change if you needed a wheelchair. And then we lay all those things out for you so that you know. And then we talk about what's most urgent. So if you were to pick a project to do in your home, this is what we feel like is the most important to step one. If you have a hospitalization, this is what, but yeah, it's very personalized, it's in your own home related.
And so I'm assuming there's a fee for you to come out and do the assessment?
Yeah.
And then, do you also do the follow-up work that needs to be done, or you have contractors that work with you, or?
Yeah, so everything after that is just kind of like an hourly consultation. Whatever you need help with, we can partner you with contractors and let you contact the contractors. We can do all of the work for you.
Okay.
We don't do any of the work ourselves.
You know,
We
they
have
have the
contractors that
hammer.
would do that. But yeah, we've vetted people all throughout that we can be that referral service and help you kind of figure out what your next step is. But a lot of times we're brought in when people are like, I'm starting to have trouble and I don't know what to do now. So then we just kind of help you develop a whole plan related to the safety of your home.
And this service helps us as well as caregivers,
Sure.
right? Because we're in those homes and it has to be safe for our caregivers as well. Because we don't want a caregiver, falling down steps because a rug is loose or, the flooring is uneven, so it helps everyone.
So is there like a ballpark price for the initial consultation?
Yeah, so we charge $350 for 1,200 square feet.
Okay.
And most people can fit their most used areas in that, and some people want their whole home assessed, so it just kind of goes up from there.
Okay, thank you.
We also with, about Bautista downsizing with ease, and that's Leanne and me. We also have a lot of resources for you, for contractors, for how to do that. Whatever she recommends, we can have the person, that we trust really to help you achieve what the plan is.
Okay.
Yeah.
What we'll see to her point is, because not only do I specialize with reverse mortgages, it's also for the purchase part of that. The reason that's important is it's so emotional. Because oftentimes this is where they've raised their family. And so I can think of numerous clients that when I call them up, I'm not sure today if I'm gonna get laughter or tears or everything else, and they've gotta realize this house doesn't fit me anymore. It's, it's a 2-story, 4,000 square foot home. But after and then they've got folks like John in the back that help them with that transition and moving, because that can be overwhelming. What do we do with our stuff? And it's very emotional. But what will happen afterwards, it's amazing. The stress is different. Because oftentimes what they're doing is it's also the group that's moving the farthest on average, and a lot of times it's moving back to be closer to the other support.
Right.
They don't wanna move in with their kids because they still want the independence, or the kids are kind of pushing that move, hey, I can't go to Florida, I need you to be closer.
Yeah.
So there's this emotional thing, but what happens after that is it's much better for everybody involved. It's just so emotional though.
Right.
That when they got the home before, when it was the fixer-upper, that was okay. It's not okay at our age. So, go ahead.
Well, I was just thinking, Sam, I'm just gonna say is politics out, don't rely on Medicare, check your house.
That's right.
Cause you're hitting so many areas and you're recording this, right?
Yep.
We'll bleed it.
Seriously, because here I am, I'm starting to take notes and it's impossible. You are hitting so many thoughts and ideas. I would pay for a copy of that.
You will have it, you will have it.
Because not only am I hearing things, but my wife needs to hear the same things. It's like she wants nothing to do with this.
And some people don't.
And I agree,
Yeah.
and I'm at a point where I gotta start thinking about this
Yeah.
stuff. She's aging faster than I am.
Yeah.
And I'm, now, wait a minute,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so related to the Medicare, what you were saying.
That part out.
As an occupational therapist, I was going in almost every home that I was treating in a long-term care, rehab to home facility prior to COVID. But since that, they've mostly been cut. We don't go in the homes before we're sending clients home. Sometimes we are if they live in a 5-mile radius and it works out and their insurance is gonna pay, but it's not helping. It's not happening very often. And when it is, it's like we get 30 minutes in the home to get you out of your home or out of the car, in the home, on the bed, on the toilet, back to the facility, and they go home the next day. So it's a very rushed process when you have already fallen or already had the stroke or those kind of things. So that's kind of why me and Haley, my business partner, have stepped out and kind of been like, let's help people prepare before, because that home assessment when you're in a rehab facility is so basic, just to get you home as quick as possible, get the safety things that need done. But yeah, you can't really rely on your insurance to help you be prepared.
And I
in that
know
aspect.
with us, we go in the home as well and we assess it, right? We have to make sure, again, it's safe for everyone involved. And all home care agencies are not the same. You've got to do your homework, and it's even frustrating, you know, I've had this argument all the time. You can't give people a book this big and say, okay, here you go, now you go vet all the home care agencies in Marion County. That's insane, right? And so, but there's certain things you should, you know, make sure they're trained, you know, what is their call-off plan? What happens if a caregiver can't come? What is the communication between me and my family? You know, those are the kind of things that you wanna make sure that all align with what your needs are, if that makes sense, right? Don't just, okay, this is just a home care, it's just a body, I just need someone. No, it's so much more than that. It is. And so, you know, you have to be very, very, you're letting someone in your home, handling your home, your care. So you have to be very, very selective about that. You know, you really do. Do they do background checks, right? Are they, you know, TB testing? I know when COVID was going on, did they, you know, some people didn't want anyone in a home that didn't get vaccinated. That was their choice, and I understood it, right? So we wouldn't send caregivers to that person if they weren't vaccinated. So, you know, certain things like that, you know, ask those questions, and you have every right. And if they don't have if they don't have an answer that suits you, red flag. Take them off the list. You know, go next, you know, next.
The thing about the central Indiana community that are supporting those that are like in the senior space, professionally speaking, is a very small community. And so if you know of someone, maybe you're looking, maybe you don't even know where to start. You get that big booklet, but you happen to know Jenny, the elder law attorney. I am very, really like tap into and lean into the resources that are at your fingertips. And I say that specifically because we have the pleasure of living in such a small central Indiana space that, I mean, everyone in this community knows each other. I jokingly say if I don't know the person, that's red flag number 1. They're either brand new or there's a reason I don't know them. So really rely on the resources around you as well, that if you, you know, have someone that's sort of adjacent to the senior space, they may be able to provide resources to for whatever you may
We
need.
do that all the time, right?
Yeah,
Did you have a question?
Yeah, how do you coordinate with like Socoa or Prime Life in Carmel or different agencies that are out there that support the elderly, and how do you get with them and coordinate with their services and stuff?
Particular to me, like if somebody would qualify for Socoa or I thought they could, it's kind of just making the referral and leaving them. Unfortunately, Socoa kind of helps this very low end area, and the money that you make to qualify for Socoa is very low, but we're finding those middle ground people that are kind of lost, that they don't qualify for Socoa and they need resources, and unfortunately in Indiana right now, that's private pay.
Middle class has always been kind of.
Yeah, so you're like stuck where you can't necessarily afford all these things, but unless you make very, very, very low amounts of money, you don't qualify for Socoa a lot of the times, and their home modification program is months out for the for qualifying for things like ramps and showers and those kind of things. We have a group of students from UND that has been helping us find out what other states' programming is like and how to help those people in the middle, and there is programming in other states, but right now it's not in Indiana, so we're working on it. On the long list of things to do is to, find Indiana to develop some programming, whether it's, some tax cuts or things so that people that are in that middle can be helpful, but for me particularly, Socoa is not a lot of help for home modifications unless you are in that.
Socoa used to be a lot of help
Yeah,
for
they
us,
did.
they
Yeah.
used to, and that's, when Indiana went with the Pathways program, that kinda, it's like, all jumbled up now, right? It's just.
that's saying it respectfully.
Yes, it is, I'm being really, really nice
Yeah.
right now, and it's, so many people we're seeing since this happened last July are just kinda like falling through the cracks. They need the home care, they don't wanna go in assisted living, they wanna stay at home, but they're not able to connect with people like us, and that's crazy, cause there's home care agencies everywhere, right?
Right.
But, and again, it comes back to the vetting. You cannot give a family that's in crisis 200 people to vet, you just can't do it. And I was speaking to a young lady at Janet and I back in Centerville were at a function for Macoa on Saturday, and she was a case manager with Socoa, and I'm like, we gotta do better. I was like, what's gonna happen, what's gonna have to happen, someone's gonna have to really die for us to say, wait a minute, this program is not working, we're here. So we always try to be referral partners with them, you know us, you know our company, and here we are, here, use us as a resource. We reach out to the family still has the right to say yay or nay, right? But at least you've got, and I've worked with companies that Graceful Age, you couldn't have done the care, but hey, I go to enough of networking events, I know someone could handle that. And we get all these crazy things because we work with seniors, and so, like I might need an elder care attorney, right? I have a big resource book, actually, of everyone that I've met, reverse mortgage, everything that I met, that I keep it because someone will call me and ask.
And I am part of MACOA, the Marion County Coalition on Aging, on their outreach committee. And to their point, I'm one of those people, if you have noticed, like, I'll go to an event and all of a sudden I find I'm on the committee because I raised my hand. And so one of the things that I've been vocal about is people that are going to MACOA or Socoa need to have a better understanding what the other person in the room does, so that we can be in a better situation to refer. So now, at least through MACOA, we're doing things where we're having outreach events, and so we're talking about different things. Mike Elkin, if you haven't met him in the back, he and I were at a dynamic one. Mike is great for like things, insurance, financial planning, you gotta talk to him. We were at something that talked about brain health. I was scared crapless. Just talking about hearing loss and how that's a precursor in many cases to dementia. So we're trying to have these outreach committees where at least the community attending can meet some more people that can help. They do need to do a better job, as you've all articulated, but they are trying to. So find them on Facebook and look at those events, because we're trying to have some quality things come out.
Right, that's a good place to insert what we do at Centerwell as well too, is we have a calendar of activities. So I'm Janet with Centerwell Senior Primary Care. We have 5 locations all around the city, the nearest location is 86th in Michigan. We have a calendar of activity, I partner with Mike Elkins, we've been doing a series called Navigating Life's Transitions. So a different topic every month, again, learning, educating, supporting, connecting. And as I've said not many times, is we know who you're supposed to know. So even if we don't do what you need, ask us, we've got a lot of people in our pockets, and we can help find who is supposed to help you. Mike and I, the talk this month is called Living Happily with Less Stuff. So that decluttering, preparing, again, that thinking ahead, like LaShawn said, right? What happens is suddenly health becomes an issue, health becomes challenging, we no longer can live in the home has 40 years worth of stuff in it. The children are like, oh my gosh, what are we supposed to do with all this stuff, right? So planning ahead and thinking about it, and we'll talk about some strategies and things going it too. We also have a talk coming up called What's That Word Again? That talk will be coming up in the month as well too. So check out either I'm at the College Park location or whatever Centerwell is near you, and look at their calendar activities. There's all kinds of things to learn. So I just commend all of you for being here today and taking the time to learn and educate yourself. It's a beautiful day outside. You could be going for a walk. You could be in a million different places right now, but you chose to take the time to be here and be empowered and uplifted and encouraged and connected, so you're ready for whatever is next.
And guys, to Janet's point, don't let aging just happen to us, right? This is just another season in our life. Be a participant in your aging process. Don't just let it happen to you. You know, that, Miss Pearl taught me that. She does, the 140, don't let it just happen to you. Be a participant in it. You know, it doesn't have to be all negative. It really, really doesn't. And she really, really showed me that. She really, really did. You know, like when I used to dread about like aging, I'm like, man, if I can do this, I'm okay. You know, and I don't have to live to 104, but just, you know, the process, you know, it doesn't have to be.
Does insurance cover any of your services? Bottom line, you know, 95% no. I mean, when I was, when I was doing this service for my mom and getting support for her, it's okay to pay out, you know, long term, but what if you're looking long term and insurance doesn't really do home health care, do they?
No, they don't. So a lot of people do the long-term care, Mike.
Yeah, so what the question is teed up here, so, long-term care insurance does provide for services, whether you go to a nursing home or skilled nursing facility, or you wanna age in place. There are lots of different ways to do that. That can be accomplished through traditional long-term care insurance, and now there's also riders that you can put on annuities as well as life insurance policies. So a lot of the folks that I'm working with, that do life insurance, we put a long-term care policy on them. And the way those typically work is that you can take up to 90% of the face value or the death benefit that you have with your, life insurance policy and bring that forward and use that to pay for long-term care insurance. If you need to have long-term care, awesome. If you don't, you still have a death benefit that you can move out to, your beneficiaries on that. So that's just one of the ways. There are many different ways to strategize and plan this. Rock and I work closely together on how to leverage the assets that you've got. You may not, be a health where you can get a life insurance policy, and that's where we take a look at your home and some of the other assets that you've got.
And what,
So to his point, so if you just think about what I do, most people, you know, they've saved some money. If you think about it as a bucket, stocks, bonds, mutual fund savings in one bucket. And then, again, I'm gonna give you a number I gave you before, $14 trillion. Depending on the value of the gold at any particular time, people are sitting in the US, seniors, our age and older, are sitting on as much value of equity as the whole value of gold that's ever been mined in the world. Is just tremendous, right? I'm gonna get to retirement, I don't want a mortgage payment, so I'm paying off my house. So all the reverse mortgage does is you have access to the stocks, bonds, mutual funds in this bucket. All we've done is made your home equity another bucket to access. I have a lot of my clients that I've helped die in place, if you will, right? And so they pay for these kind of cares. And most often, what I hear from their kids, which is still weird calling, you know, 50-year-olds or 60-year-old kids, is, that's good, I want mom to be happy. We want them to have the care. That's where she wants to die in place. I'm like, use it. At that point, their life has gone on anyways, they're not really worried about that. So to to Mike's point, it's just another bucket. We do that.
This is very important.
Okay.
There ought to be 1,000 people here, or 2,000.
Oh, God, yeah.
I used to have a nursing home practice. Most of my patients were there because something happened. They didn't have a plan B. They had a stroke, they fell or broke something, and they were put in there emergently. So none of this was in place. And it was a horrendous mess most of the time. Family members squabbling, money issues, on and on. And, there's more of us, we're 78 and 77 years old, there's more of us in this cohort than there is anybody else.
That's right.
10,000 people should be sitting here listening to all this stuff. I'm reading a book called Living Life Backwards by David Gibson. It's about Ecclesiastes. It's really pertinent to what we've been talking
Yeah,
about.
I've read that.
This is a great lecture. I'm glad I came.
Cause guys, you can't make decisions in crisis, it's just, you're gonna make mistakes.
There's a survey, all right, so there's a survey on all your chairs. I do wanna say one more thing, cause I'll be remiss, cause this is very dear to my heart. Some people have the illusion that any attorney can do what she does. They do everything. Get someone that knows what they're doing. I've lived it, I've made a hard decision in a waiting room with my mother. Do I keep her alive, do I not? And I have that decision, we have that power in place. And so I kept thinking, I think of others that maybe are given that power, but they're not really the right ones to make that. I have siblings that would not have been able to make that decision, and luckily we had that documentation in place, the right documentation. She does the right documentation, so I will give a shout out to her, I'll give that commercial, make sure
Here's
you've
your
got that
20,
stuff.
Rock.
Yeah, there you go, right? But make sure you've got that from the people that are the experts, that know what they're doing, that aren't just, suing whoever. They're setting up your plans, it's dear to my heart, so I wanna make sure
Oh,
I
I
give it a
appreciate
shout out.
that. And it doesn't have to be your oldest child.
No.
It doesn't have to be.
But we do appreciate the feedback, there is an opportunity to give us more feedback, everyone's gonna be here. Make sure you see Jonna, make sure you see Dave and Mike and Janet, they all do a great job, and they're all here to be supportive of you.
There's a question in the back.
If you're unhappy with any of this, we will refund your attendance.
Judy in the back has a question.
Oh, yeah.
I just wanna say one thing, you were talking about if you need ramps or something and you can't afford it or you can't get, many churches will help you. If you're associated with the church, I know the church Iowa builds ramps for people, they would do small construction jobs, sometimes there's no cost for it at all, so it is another option to look into.
And
There's a
guys, just a
program.
shout out to our vets, I just learned this not too long ago, that if you were in service, you didn't have to go to war, but if you or your spouse was in service during when we were in war, they're called, there's a benefit that you can get that will pay for home care. So, check it out, there's resources out there, I know it's overwhelming. Huh?
Where do I check that
Yes,
out
yes,
at?
yes,
Because spouse that died in the military.
Yeah, and there is for a spouse. It's not as much as the person that was in the military, but there is money for the spouse. Yeah, and it's a process, so.
Just to make sure I understand, you said if you had a spouse who served during a wartime.
Yes, ma'am.
Then there would be a benefit
Yes,
for
ma'am.
that spouse.
Yes, ma'am.
For,
Home care, yes, ma'am.
And is that through the VA or?
Yes, ma'am.
Through the VA?
Sorry. It's the VA,
Yeah, it's
sorry.
slow process. There are some asset limitations to aid and attendance, yeah, that's what it's called, VA aid and attendance.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Offset limitation? Oh, my.
I know.
I think that's it, right?
Yes,
Well,
yes.
we'll be here if you have any more questions, and please, fill out that survey, let us know.
Take your little quizzes, guys.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Thank
take
you.
your,
everyone.
take